States of America. We've got 50 states and many territories in this country. But we've had these state borders for the past almost 60, 70 years, since 1959, when Hawaii finally joined the Union. For anything that has been around for 60, 70 years, I think we deserve a newer arrangement of our geographic and administrative divisions. So in today's video, I am going to show you the redesign that I think would better fit America for her current economic, political, and defense needs. Now, I live personally in the glorious and peaceful and prosperous land of Midwest, where for majority of Americans who don't live here, you'd think we're just cornfield and some cows and some forests. We're the flyover states, my friends. And that is a sad reality, because the Midwest has a tremendous amount of positive things to offer for the rest of the American people. So I'm going to use my positively respectful bias in favor of my own region to redesign a new American landscape centered around the Midwestern region, specifically centered around the biggest city we've got in these Midwestern lands, hence the city of Chicago. So I'm going to redesign America with a new capital in Chicago, with a more centralized political structure versus what we have now, which is a more federal and devolved political structure, in respect, of course, not to party politics. I'm not interested in talking about party politics. I'm just interested in talking about administrative divisions of state, city, stuff like that. So let's go on ahead and look at what I have designed for our brand new America. So first, let's talk about what kind of administrative division system we have now in our federal system. So in America right now, we have a couple levels of administrative hierarchy. Firstly, we have the federal government, obviously being the highest in the list. Next, we have states, the 50 states. And then we have commonly known as counties, although for some states, I know for sure that they call it a little bit differently, but counties nonetheless. And then we have, cities, towns, townships, villages. I think different states have different names for them. The hierarchy isn't exactly so domineering. Local governments do have a lot of power and independence to make their own decisions, which I think, I appreciate that. But I personally would prefer a hierarchy with a clearer division of power and responsibilities and chain of command, just in case of, emergency, whether it's a natural disaster or foreign invasion or any kind of, challenges that would render a small local government unable to respond efficiently and protect its citizens. So here is a list of hierarchy that I came up with that I think would fit America pretty well. Although, of course, I'm not a professional politician or any kind of professional, really. I wouldn't really call myself any kind of professional. So this is just my own imagination of what would work better than our current system. So first, we're going to establish a hierarchy of administrative division for this new America. We're going to still have a little bit of the federal system left in terms of giving local governments some independence and power to govern themselves as the people see fit. But, in terms of administrative division, we are going to make the hierarchy more defined and given more levels than the way it is now. The capital of this new America will, of course, like I said before, be in the city of Chicago. On the first level of the hierarchy, we're going to have what I would call a metropolitan state. A metropolitan state, I would define it as a state that is centered around a major big city in any given geographic region of the United States, to serve the purpose of like a regional heart. This is different than like a capital of a state, like Springfield, Illinois, or Tallahassee, Florida, or I don't know many state capitals, but you know what I mean. It's different than that, because the state capital in the current federal system is probably purely of a political status. If you were to go to Springfield, Illinois, there isn't really much going on. There isn't really a lot of building or much of a city. It's just the state capital, some government buildings, and that's pretty much it. What I really would like for America, for a new America, is to combine the political center of the region and the economic center of the region to create a sort of a powerhouse for the leadership of that particular region. So we're going to create these metropolitan states as the first tier governing bodies of a geographic region. For example, we're going to have one for Midwest. We're going to have one for the Northeast, for the Southeast, for the South, for the West, for the Rockies, for the Western Coast, etc., etc. And the next level, the secondary level, would be what I would call a provincial state. This is similar to what we have right now in our federal system. This is going to be based on the original 50 states we have, although I'm going to heavily redraw the borders of these states in a fashion that I see as more appropriate. When I say appropriate, I do mean sometimes more logical appropriate in terms of like, we're going to combine a whole bunch of really small states like Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, to make it just, bigger and more easy to deal with. So we don't have to have, a whole bunch of really tiny small states and then a whole bunch of really giant states out west. And sometimes, I just like, states' borders are kind of boring. I like to make them prettier, make them more wholesome, just look pretty. There isn't really much logic to most of this. And the third level of the hierarchy would be what I call cities. Much of American population now is perhaps not directly in the downtown area of cities, but surrounding a major metropolitan area. Most of the population of America do live in these metropolitan areas. And for some states, one big city basically controls really a tremendous number of the population in that state, especially, out west, where there's a lot of rural land and not really a lot of cities. So I like to make cities a much bigger deal than they are right now. And make them the one, two, three, the third tier administrative division. And below city, we're going to have counties as we do have now. And below counties, we're going to have townships. And below townships, we're going to have obviously towns and villages and what have you. But I'm going to show you maps, of course, later on to show you what I mean specifically. But because of the map that I can find, which is the county level map, I'm not going to show you anything below the county level. You can basically, assuming that I'm going to keep all the small towns and villages that we have now, I'm not going to change anything like that. What I will change just on the maps is going to be primarily state level. So here we see the first map that I made with the website map chart. You guys can take a look at the website. It's a pretty fantastic website that you can color in, maps from around the world, however you like. So the first map over here, we see a list of metropolitan states highlighted in purple. And then the capital city for New America, Chicago, is highlighted in red. So the metropolitan states are selected based on their population, economic power, recognition, and also just their geographic location. I really want, one metropolitan state per geographic region. Although, for especially for some Western states, I feel like um, there isn't really any big city with enough recognition and economic strength that it would befit. So you would see this kind of weird blankness out west in the Great Plains and the Rockies. But that is by design because we don't really want too many metropolitan states to crowd out. Typically, I really want to see at least three provincial states per metropolitan state to just keep things simple, clear, and well defined. And that's really the purpose. Well defined chain of command and hierarchy and division of responsibility and your government power as well. So we have a couple of metropolitan states here. We got the capital city, Chicago, Minneapolis, Cleveland, New York, the old Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Orlando, Houston, St. Louis, Billings, Phoenix, Calgary, and Seattle. The only one that I will explain to you a little bit is Calgary. Obviously, that city does not exist in real life, but it will exist in this fictional scenario. It is a combination of San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. And this arrangement is primarily because of the sheer economic powerhouse California is in real life. And I feel like it is appropriate to combine those three giant metropolitan area into one single metropolitan state to highlight the economic strength of California. Because in real life, California can technically be its own state and it will, compete quite well with other countries in the world. So I think it will be a good arrangement to see all those three cities combined into one metropolitan state, be in charge of the West Coast and some part of the Rockies. So let's take a look at a map of new provincial states. In this new design for America, we're going to have 43 new provincial states. There are a few states that I kept the original name. Most of the states I have combined their former names as I have combined those states. As you can see, I generally made our 50 states larger, although there are a few of them that I have made them smaller, but most of them have enlarged. I've also added Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, and American Samoa, those five as additional states. You will see in a second the state names on the next map. So on this map, we can see the names for the new 43 states, 43 provincial states of the United States. Let's list them off by the metropolitan states that are in charge of them. The first one, let's begin with the Chicago metropolitan state, will be in charge of the following three states: Indiana, Wismin, and Menhill, being combined with the states of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and a tiny part of Minnesota. Illinois here obviously got the best deal, I think, being able to keep most of its original territory and basically get most of Indiana and the western portion of Ohio. The purpose of these three states obviously is to defend and provide a cushion for the new American capital in Chicago. Next, we have the metropolitan state of Minneapolis, being in charge of states of Minord, Missouri, and Dakota. And then we have the metropolitan state of Cleveland, being in charge of the states of Onasovia, Appalachia, and Ontavia. This particular region is basically the Appalachian Mountain region. I basically, I'm a fan of carving out administrative divisions roughly along the lines of geographic features, such as mountain. And Appalachia really is a really difficult region to govern in America. And I thought to, combine, especially West Virginia, part of Virginia, and some part of Tennessee and North Carolina into this huge state of Appalachia, in hope that, the new state would do a better job at governing the peoples of this mountainous region. And let's go to the east, where we have the New York metropolitan state, governing the state of Yorka, New England, and Maine. Basically, over here, what I did was just combine all of those tiny little New England states into one New England state. So we don't have any state that are so small that we can't even see it on the big map. Down south, we have Washington, D.C., the old capital, in charge of the states of Virginia, Mercia, and Mercy. I was going to keep the name Virginia, but I thought, if this is a new America, why don't we change the name a little bit? A little bit of a French tone, Virgin. I think that would sound a little classier than the Virginia. Further down south, we have the Atlanta metropolitan state, in charge of the states of Alarida, Georgina, and Caroline. More down south, we have the metropolitan state of Orlando, being in charge of states of Florida, Puerto Rico, and Virgin Islands. So that's pretty interesting that I have turned Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands into states, which I think, they've been trying to work on that for a long time, and I think they do deserve to become an actual state of this American family. Go west a little bit, we go to St. Louis, being in charge of the states of Arkansas, Tennessee, and Mississippi. Now we go to Texas. The metropolitan state of Houston is in charge of Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. I was trying to think about a way to change the name of Texas, but Texas is such a fantastic and awesome name that let's keep it. I think it sounds awesome to keep the name of Texas. And up north, all the way to the Rockies, we have the Billings um, metropolitan state. The city of Billings is the largest city in the state of Montana, and its geographic location is fantastic. So I picked it as the metropolitan state for this region. It governs the states of Idaho, Itaming, and Dakaska. Let's go to the deserts. The metropolitan state of Phoenix is in charge of the states of Arawa, Laxico, and Colorado. The metropolitan state of Calgary is in charge of the most amount of provincial states in this scenario: California, Nevada, Oregon, Hawaii, Mariana Islands, Guam, and what am I forgetting here? Oh, right, American Samoa. Those are also going to become actual states. Lastly, we have the metropolitan state of Seattle. This is a special one. It's in charge of states of Washington, which I didn't change the name because, paying respect to the founding father, the state of Orca, and the state of Alaska is put in charge of Seattle. Because although I could have made Alaska its own metropolitan state, but the population really is not big enough to put a metropolitan state there. So that's why I put Alaska in charge of Seattle. I don't know. Historically, there isn't really much connection between those places. They're not even adjacent on land or by sea, really. But I can't just leave Alaska out there. It's a integral part of the United States, so we got to have Alaska being put somewhere. So closest big city it is Seattle. So there we go. That's the whole map of provincial states in this brand new redesigned America. So this marks the end of this very long, more than 20 minutes of video of my random thought on how to redesign the United States of America around a centralized system, being centered around the state of Illinois and specific the city of Chicago. I will explain a little bit of why I think the Midwest is tremendously important and could be a good candidate for a new center of the country. Obviously, the first reason is water. The Midwest is home to most of the Great Lakes. In a world where climate change and global warming is, you can have your own opinion about that, but regardless of whatever's going on in the natural world, humans, we do need fresh water above many things that we think we need. Water, food, air is the three most fundamental building block of our survival, and the Great Lakes is a tremendously important strategic reserve of that resource. And so in the future, whatever happens with America, whoever controls the Great Lakes control life itself. And I think we need to put so much more development and emphasize on the Great Lake region, because really, water is going to be the key for the world in the future, much more important than gold, oil, or copper or lithium or whatever have you. Water is going to be important, and Midwest is where we have the most of this resource. Fresh water, not just salt water. I mean, we have salt water everywhere on Earth, but fresh water reserve, America has got it, and Midwest has got the most of it in America. And Chicago hey, it's relatively at the center of the country and it's next to the Great Lakes. So, by any metric, I think if America were to, in real life, pick a new capital city, Chicago should obviously be on the top of the list. I am biased because I live in the Midwest. I like this place, so I'm biased in favor of it. But for the benefit of the American people, I think in the future, if we do end up picking a new capital, you know, Chicago. Think about it, America. Think about Chicago. Thank you for watching.